Leadville Racers, how are you today? My name is Mike Iddings, and I'm the host of the YouTube channel Get My Buckle. This channel is all about Leadville, the racers, the race, the course, the weather, whatever it is. Today is a special guest for me anyway. It is my brother, Gregg Iddings, and he has done the race 6 times, and he has crossed the finish line 4 times. Gregg has, Leadville holds a very special place to myself, to our family, to my brother, to our other brother in Germany, which he's on the show as well. So Gregg's going to share his first time Leadville experience, and maybe some more of his experiences throughout his 6-time attempts. So welcome to the show, Gregg. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. That's right. So, coming from Michigan, how did you get to the point where you said, I am going to sign up for the Leadville Trail 100 and make my way to Colorado and give her hell in the mountains?
Well, it was you. Of course, you had already done the race at that point, and had told me about it, got me excited about trying it. My first Leadville race was 1998. At that point in time, I was turning 30 years old. I felt like I wanted to do something, significant, and sent the check in and got in and started training. The much training that I could do here in Michigan. We don't have the mountains or the hills, and I didn't have any experience with racing endurance at that point. So, you got me on board and head out to Leadville in 1998.
1998. Yeah, that's a while ago. Go ahead, keep going, keep sharing what how early did you get there? What did you think when you got there?
Sure, got there. Didn't do the super early to acclimate. Again, didn't really know much about the endurance training, endurance nutrition. I've learned a lot of that since then. This was my first real attempt at an ultra endurance event like this. So really, what got me to the finish line was a lot of just grit, guts, and determination. Like, Ken always tells you about. I didn't have the natural physique. I wasn't a college athlete or anything like that. I just had to work hard. I liked riding bikes. As you know, we grew up racing, motocross for years, racing BMX for years. That was always something that we did when we were kids. So to be able to continue, doing bike racing and to do it at this kind of an event, kind of an epic event, was exciting, and caused me to do a lot of riding out on the trails and preparation ahead of time. So when I got out to Leadville, I'd been out there in Colorado riding with you in the mountains. I knew that I was going to love being out in the mountains doing this race, but I really had no idea what I was going to experience doing, the full day 100-mile Leadville Trail 100 race across the sky. Just had no idea.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember those same feelings, having no idea, back in 94. Just, it is an enormous learning curve when you come from some state other than Colorado or some state without mountains, and you get there and you look up and you're like, oh my goodness, we're going to climb that? It's like, yes, you are.
Yeah, that's very true. And the other thing is doing the races. Now that I've done several, one of the most important things you can do is look around and just see how beautiful it is out there. Maybe that's hard to do sometimes when it's hailing out and you're freezing cold and all you want to do is be off the bike. But when you have those moments where it's sunny and blue skies and you can see the lakes or the mountains in the distance, those are some of my best memories ever. Just doing this race and working toward getting to that finish line.
Colorado and Leadville are beautiful, that's for sure.
Yes, without a doubt.
So did you get an opportunity to pre-ride any of the course when you did it in 98?
No, not really. We didn't know in that point in time. I just didn't know what I was needing to do to prepare. I went up to Colorado. I hung out with you, and we had some friends out there. We I think I stayed at the Delaware Hotel that year. It was not anything like what I do when I go out there now for a race. So, it was just getting out there, getting my bike out there was as much as I could really even think about ahead of time. Before the race. I think we drove up to the top of, going up to the Columbine to see what it was, to get past the tree line and kind of get a look at that. Just enough to put the fear of God in me at that point.
Yeah, I do. I do. It's been a while, but I do. Yeah, I do remember us driving the course. Probably because it was crappy weather.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think we just wanted to see it, but it wasn't kind of whether we could drive up there. And I was not physically prepared for the race. I don't, there's been races since then where I got a lot smarter and a lot better about endurance training after being motivated by doing, my first Leadville race. But really, it was just, I'll give this a shot and see if I can do it. And, with a lot of hard work during the day and a lot of help from others, I was able to get to the finish line and, had a great day, without a doubt.
Yeah,
I say that now.
right. I know that race was pretty impacting on you and me.
Well,
So
it sure was. And we'll get to that. As you know, I wrote a story about the race afterwards that, I've shared countless times with people. We still read it when we go out for the races nowadays. And I am signed up for this race this year. Just for your viewers, I'm slow and I'm heavier than most guys. I'm a lot bigger than Mike. So I've got 6 races, 4 finishes, but no buckles. And tell you what, pants are falling down. I'm going to get the buckle this year. It's the last thing I do. I've been working hard for it. My wife bought me the belt years back. I got a Leadville belt with no buckle on it. I can't even use it. So this is going to be the year I do it. I'm really trying to put everything into it and making the changes I need to make, losing some weight, putting time on the bike, getting a coach, doing all the smart things I hadn't done in the past, just to make sure that I got my best chance to get there in sub 12 this finish.
well, there you go, first timers. Gregg's not a first timer, but he is doing what it takes first timers, need to do to get their buckle. So you got to make a bunch of changes. You need to get serious. You need to start now. Start the day you get the email and get after it, because you need to make sure the trajectory lands on race day. Single baby steps all the way there, moving forward all the time. Do what it takes. It's a long journey. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of a commitment. So make the commitment, get after it. All right, Gregg, keep going.
Agreed. So I've disclosed I'm slow, so everybody knows that now. But one thing I do have that a lot of your first timers don't have is I've got right here 3 Leadville finisher medals. So the first year in '98, I didn't get a medal. We finished in 14 hours and 20 minutes, I think, setting a course record. After that, they changed the rules where if you weren't off the course in 13 hours, they had the right to remove you from the course. I don't think that was yet in the books, because if it was, they would have exercised that right, because they offered us 100 times during that last section of the race. And Mike, you'll remember this. Hey, you want to ride back? You want to ride back? And each time we politely declined. I may have been pushing my bike on the flats at that point in time, but we weren't giving up that race. I felt bad going up to Columbine. I got a headache. I got altitude sickness. When I got back off of Columbine and 60 miles into the race, I was done. And remember, you and our pit crew that was there gave me the motivation, gave me some ibuprofen, gave me a shoulder rub, filled up my Camelback, and set me on my way. And like, you didn't believe me when I was telling you that I was done and I couldn't go any further. You made me go. I picked up some speed in that next section, and I made the last checkpoint there at the fish hatchery, barely. I remember you guys coming out and yelling, "Hey, hey, hey! You gotta pick it up if you're gonna make it." And I made it with literally like minutes to spare. And that was when you said, "Hey, I'm gonna ride the last part of the race with you." Uh, if you didn't offer that, if I didn't have you riding that last 25 miles or so with me, there's just no way I would have even tried it. But what are you gonna do when your brothers offered to do that? You got to go on. So we did, right? And then I lost everything. I was whooped. I had no business being on the course at that point in time, but I wasn't going to give up, and you weren't going to let me give up. The luckiest thing that happened to us is we ran into it was getting starting to get dark. We had the sweep guy behind us. Cole was behind us on the four-wheeler, picking up the garbage off the course and sweeping the course, and I was the only thing keeping him from going faster. So poor guy. So remember, poor guy had to follow us around, and it got dark, and he put his lights on, and he lit our way with his four-wheeler, and we continued to push on. I'd ride the downhills, but anything flat or uphill, pretty much I had to push. And we finally made it to town. They met us there with a police escort, I think maybe an ambulance to make sure that I was okay. And we got to that finish line. Of course, the carpet was put away. There wasn't anybody in town, but no, we were both crying and we were both having just a great time getting to that finish line after that 14 and a half hour ordeal during the course of that day.
Oh my gosh. I I vividly remember going up, going up. I forget which hill though, but I remember Cole on the ATV saying to us, are you guys going to stick with it and finish?" And we said, "Whatever it takes, we're finishing." And he said, "Okay, I'm with you." And he turned his lights on and he said, I'm with you guys. I'll stick with you. And that was, I mean, oh man, to me, that that was a turning point of that was a victory, right? Knowing that he was going to stick with us. He wasn't going to make us quit. He wasn't going to, anything like that. He was going to stick with us in the crappy weather and whatever it took in the dark and go, 2 miles an hour. And I mean, that itself was a victory to me.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without having Cole there, without having you there, I can tell the story all I want that it was all my doing and how wonderful a job I did to get to the finish line. But without having that help from you two guys, there was just no way I was going to do it.
And we weren't going to let you, not finish.
Despite the pain in my head, the numbness in my hands, the blood on my ankles, anything else I had going on at that point in time, I we made it, and it was a great experience. Great
Yeah.
experience.
Regarding your blood. So uh, here's a good little story. We're pushing, and we're pushing anything that wasn't downhill. So while we're pushing, I know Greg started with white socks, but they were pink. So we're brothers, and I'm the bigger brother, and I'm giving him crap, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, what's up with the pink socks?" Because we had all day to talk, and he's like, "I don't have pink socks. I have white socks." I said, "No, you ought to look again. They're pink. What's going on?" And he looked down and he said, "Oh, yeah, my blisters broke and the blood is weeping up into my socks." And at that point, I was like, "Okay, this is real. This is real. This is digging deep. If there's ever been a dig deep story, this is digging deep right here." And we just kept on. So I have to give you that one, Greg. That was awesome to know that your feet hurt so bad with raw blisters and blood weeping up your white socks. Oh my goodness. That's a Leadville thing though. Keep going.
Well, little known fact, cycling shoes are meant for riding your bike, not so much for pushing up hills.
Oh, good point.
But we made it, and no fanfare, but just a very significant thing for me to be able to say I did the Leadville Trail 100. I went back 2 years later in 2000. That was the year that Karsten flew in, our German exchange student brother from Germany, and finished it, but uh, didn't make the 12-hour cutoff for the buckle. I did make the 13-hour cutoff and got my medal, which I did again in 2002. I took a break then and didn't do Leadville for a while. I went on to doing some easier events. Mike and I started racing Ironman races in 2004. We both independently signed up for Wisconsin. I've finished 10 Ironman races since then. I can tell you guys, if you're an Ironman racer and you're doing Leadville for your first time, Ironman is nothing compared to Leadville. It's so much harder because of the altitude, because of the intensity. I mean, I would do an Ironman any day over Leadville, just because Leadville is so difficult with the mountain passes, with the trying to breathe with no oxygen, just takes everything out of you. I returned back in 2013, which was the year I should have got my buckle. I was in great shape. I was at that point in time a seasoned Ironman racer, had lost a lot of weight, was ready to do it, but unfortunately, made bad decision. Made many bad decisions that year in my life, but one of the decisions I made was because I was in such great shape, I could do Leadville on my vintage Bontrager Race Light, fully rigid mountain bike. And I actually showed up at the start line on that race. Nobody could believe it. Everybody was looking at me, talking to me, telling me they thought the bike should have been at that point in time in a museum rather than on the starting line at Leadville. I had modified it slightly. I said it was fully rigid, and that's kind of a lie. I did have a soft ride flex stem on the front, and I did have a RockShox suspension post on the back. So all in all, about half an inch of travel. That wasn't enough. I had a great race. My best finish, 12 hours and 20 minutes. I heard the gun go off as I was trying to get back into town. That was tough to hear that year for sure. But I did finish, and live to tell the story.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. So that was what, 2002, you said?
No, so 2013 was when I came back.
Oh, 2013.
My finishes were 98, 2000, 2002. 2004 we started the Ironman racing, and I got, so at that point in time I got experience learning what you needed to do in terms of I had a coach for one season. I got smart about endurance, I got smart about nutrition, and just learned a lot doing those races. So when I came back in 2013, I really just should have had the right bike, and I would have got my buckle that year. Heartbroken, I took another big break from racing Leadville and didn't return until 2021. By that point in time, I had, frankly, I was a broken person from where I was when I was younger. I'd been through a lot and put on weight and just wasn't the same young athletic guy that I was. So I tried it in 21 and 22. Both years got cut off at the 40-mile mark. Never even got a chance to attempt that long climb up to the turnaround. And that in 2021, I was minutes shy. In 2022, I was literally less than a minute off the pace to be able to continue the race, but just wasn't fast enough. So this year, I'm going hard. I'm going as fast as I can, right from the get-go. I'm not worried about pacing myself or anything. I'm going to go hard, I'm going to hurt, and I'm going to love it. And the more I hurt, the harder I'm going to go. And that's how I'm going to get the buckle, because that's how you got to do it.
Oh, I love the attitude. Love the attitude. But let's not burn all our matches before we get done. Okay.
Yes, I hear you. I know. I may be a little bit extra talk, and I'm excited here talking to you about Leadville, but I'm going to race a smart race. I'm going to have the right bike now. I'm going to lose the extra weight that I need to lose to make it easier to climb the hills. This beginning of this year, I had a medical appointment and had pretty big wake up call. I've got high cholesterol, I've got high blood pressure. They put me on a bunch of medication. So I changed the way I was eating. Now I'm mostly vegan, following Mike's lead. I'm not doing all the high saturated fat foods, and I'm just trying to be smarter about what I put in my body. Unfortunately, I've had a couple knee injuries over the years. So I had a knee surgery in January. with the weight gain, I blew out my abdomen, so I had a double hernia surgery in February. Now, hopefully, I got all the surgical problems I need addressed. I can just focus on my diet and my training and getting ready for that race. So I'm going right now from not having ridden my bike but a couple of times this year to getting ready to race Leadville and get a buckle in August. So, it can be done, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to document how to do it and make sure everyone knows you don't have to start this race out having been a successful college athlete or a retired professional football player to get to the finish line. I'm going to do it this year, and get Mike's help, and we get help from everybody I can get, because the only way to do it is with the help of everybody that's around you and get that motivation and feed off of those people. And I tell you what, Mike, I'm glad that you got this out here and I got to share my story, and I get to see some of these people on the start line and, see them at the finish line too.
Oh man, nothing like put the pressure on yourself, huh?
Gotta have it. That's how I function. I gotta have the pressure on me.
Well, I think you just did it.
Well, Leadville, since that first race, it's been a big part of my life. I wrote a story about it that I shared with you about the experience with Mike helping me get to the finish line that first race and how important that was to me. And frankly, I used that story um, over and over again. I shared that story with Governor Jennifer Granholm when I was applying to get a appointment to the bench, and I got a judicial appointment. I became a judge, and sure, it wasn't only because I did Leadville, but there wasn't anybody else applying for a position as a juvenile court judge who had already finished Leadville and done all these Ironman races and all the other things that I had done in the community to try to help kids. So I think that was a big help there. I would go to the juvenile campus and read my story. My story was called, as you know, A Trail Runs Through It. I ripped off Norm Maclean's book, A River Runs Through It, a little bit, but it seemed fitting and more of a inspiration and I don't know. I don't want to say I ripped it off because I wasn't giving him full credit. But I used that story. I read that story to the kids at the campus. I showed them the video, the Leadville video where Lance raced it, got them all excited because I think it's important that people know that you are better than you think you are, and you can do more than you think you can. You just put your mind to it and work hard. With hard work, anything's possible.
Man, it's just so awesome how the Leadville sayings, they just resonate everywhere in life. I mean, they just show up everywhere. And it's awesome, isn't it?
Really is. Yeah, it really is. Get a lot of mileage out of all my Leadville experiences for sure. But I've got one more I need to do before I can close my Leadville book, and I got to get that buckle. Just got to do it. This
Well,
is
that's
the year.
2024. You got 2024 is be the year.
Been working at it for over 25 years. So you first timers, it's a long haul. Make sure you're in it for the long haul.
Right. All right. So you've got plenty of experience. You've had your share of victories. You've also had your share of defeats. So what would you, give the first timers some food for thought, some advice, some bullet points? What have you learned that's gonna help them get from their wherever they are starting to the red carpet?
Sure, and I'm glad to try to do that, without having done it fast enough to get the buckle. I can share what I've learned and what, the knowledge that I've gained from doing this, the times that I've done it. And most of it, of course, as everyone knows, is your preparation. You got to become obsessed with the race, and it's got to be your number one goal. Maybe not as much as Mike, but more than you do for most other things in your life. The training is super important. The over endurance training I learned, from doing the Ironman races. You gotta go out and spend time on the bike and do those long rides and just make sure that you build up all that endurance The thing that I'm not as good about and I'm going to do better with is also balancing that out with the high intensity training on your trainer and in the mountains. I am a single speeder, so I do get some high intensity training because every hill I come to, I got to ride as hard as I can to get to the top. But we don't have that big of hills here in Michigan. So I think that the training is, getting your body in the physical condition it needs to be for the race is very important. The nutrition is key. You got to find something that you can eat all day long. I know Mike and a lot of the racers are going toward, eating just regular food rather than all the crazy processed stuff. Some of the processed stuff really works well for me. You got to find out what's going to work for you. I've seen videos on YouTube where people are trying out new things at Leadville for the first time as far as food goes. I wouldn't recommend that. Mike, maybe you want to share a little bit of your insurance story the first time you raced Leadville.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, back in 94, we had, the guys that I entered with, we had no business entering Leadville. We were not experienced. We were, all we were a couple, a few guys that had an attitude like, we can do this, no problem. We got this. And one of the guys started to, I think on Wednesday, we started proteining up, not carbon up, proteining up with Ensure drinks. And we drank them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Friday, I forget at what time, but my body just said too much protein, too much, and started to get rid of the protein, which lasted Friday night, Saturday morning, race time. I probably stopped 5, 6, 8 times before I got to Columbine. And then the TMI piece of this is I left a pair of underwear on the A-frame at the turn at Columbine when you get to tree line. Oh man, that was bad news. I'm glad we've all learned about nutrition and how to fuel for Leadville, because that was an ugly day. And that's the reason that I didn't get my first buckle. I had nothing in my system. I couldn't eat. My intestines were just, they weren't ready for food. They didn't want any. So I had zero fuel pushing up power line and seeing green dots and hearing the power lines buzz because it was raining and just not even knowing where I was at. Turned around and went back down. So that's a whole other show when I tell my first experience.
Yeah, those early days, I think we may have had some salt tablets that we used, but they didn't have the hammer e-caps out then or anything like that. There was a Phil Maffetone made a vegan shake that I use as a protein meal replacement, and that worked pretty well. He's not making those anymore. I never found one that was as good, but obviously there's a lot of companies out there that are selling you on the endurance foods. And I find that those work pretty well for me. I know Mike and a lot of the other guys have turned and they're eating just regular sandwiches and things like that during the race. I always have a hard time eating. So that's why it's important to try during your long training rides to eat and to make sure you're staying well fueled, because that's the real challenge on these endurance races, to make sure you still have food coming in light of all the calories you're burning. You want to have that strength to finish strong.
Right. And one of the other previous shows was Chris Carmichael. And his recommendation is train your gut while you are training for Leadville. So all the times, January, February, March, all this, you are also training your gut and you're figuring out what works for you, and you're eating every 10 to 15 minutes, taking a bite and washing it down. So you first timers out there, not only are you training your fitness level, but you are training your gut, to take all the calories for that extended period of time and be able to do it, and perform.
In my mind, it's hard to do that when you're only doing hour-long workouts. You got to do those long workouts where you're going to be out past 45 minutes, and now your glycemic index is off, and you got to continue to bring in calories and bring in food. So if you're not riding for 2 hours or more, it's hard to get an idea with if what you're eating is affecting you in an appropriate way. So, I would again encourage those long rides, as many as you can get in, just so you can try to get an idea what it feels like to be in the saddle for hours and hours and hours.
True, good advice.
The other thing is, I think the only thing I had going my first time trying Leadville, and something that I didn't really have my last couple of times, is that mental toughness edge. Whether it's the Eye of the Tiger from the Rocky movies or whatever it is that gets you motivated, you got to have that Ken Klauber speaking in your ear the whole time, telling you you can do this, you can do this. Commit, don't quit, all of those kinds of things, because that's, to me, that's a big part of the race. That's why the one Ironman race I didn't finish, I didn't have that, and that ended up actually being the one that I tried 2 years after Leadville. And then the last couple of races I was there, I was pacing myself, trying to outsmart the race, trying to be able to have a strong finish, and I paced myself out of getting cut off 40 miles into the race. So I'm this year I've got a different attitude. I'm going hard, I'm going fast, I'm going with a smile on my face, and I'm going all day. So, that's my plan, Mike. It really is.
Sounds like a good plan.
I hope it works.
And you'll be getting a coach?
I am getting a coach. You and I have talked, and probably going to go through your coach or similar coach to that. I haven't used a coach for racing since 2008. I got a coach for Ironman Arizona. It made a big difference. That was my PR that year. So, having somebody that you can talk to, bounce ideas off of, that can give you the training plans, talk to you about nutrition, help you monitor what's going on while you're training, it makes a big difference. So if you can afford a coach, I would recommend it. I haven't always used a coach, but this year, because I want to make sure that now that I've got everything else corrected surgically and everything else in line, I want to make sure that that's not something that is going to be lacking when I get there the day of the race.
Okay, well, here's a good time for the plug. Carmichael Training Systems. They're aligned with Get My Buckle, and if you use the discount code Get My Buckle, they will waive the athlete registration fee. So, Greg, there you go. Save a couple bucks there. And first timers, if you're going to engage CTS, you can also get the athlete registration fee waived as well.
All right, thanks, Mike. I'll take that down and make sure I use it.
Good. So what bike are you going to run this year?
So I ended up, I've had different bikes over the years. The antique bike in 2013 aside, I've been always doing bikes with just a front suspension, but I bought a carbon Cannondale Scalpel, which is full suspension and enduro bike, and that's what I use in 21 and 22. I'm not blaming the bike for those finishes. It's definitely my fitness level and my weight, but that's what I'll be using this year. Again, back to that same ride. It's light, it's comfortable, and it's a great bike. It's totally different geometry than the bikes when we first started doing these races. It's a lot easier to sit in that bike for a long ride than it is on my old Lightspeed titanium rigid frames that I used back in the day, back in the 90s.
Nice. I think Lachlan Morton is running a Scalpel. So there you go. Now you have no excuse.
Right?
All right. And what for the your first gearing, we went from talk about gearing, because I know we changed gearing on your bike, and let the viewers know what your opinion and experience is with changing that front ring.
So I don't line up with you 100% on changing that front ring. Of course, the bikes now where you got one ring in the front and all of your gear changes are in the back. Very different than when we first started doing it, where there was a triple crank in front and 7 in the back. So what I've done, in Mike's suggestion, is put a much smaller ring on the front. I think we did maybe a 30 or maybe even like a 28 the last time I raced it. And Mike's idea is, you want to be able to climb the power line and be able to keep spinning. You got to have that ultra granny gear. I never made it back to the power line. I never made it to any of those climbs. I'm not as concerned this year about having that ability to climb straight up a wall as I am about getting to that 40-mile mark quickly. So I'm not going to go probably that small on the front. Watching the pros and seeing that they're pushing these 36 tooth and 38 tooth front sprockets. I'm not going there either. Probably going to do like a 32 or something in that range where I can still have high speed for the flats, if you will, going out to that 40-mile mark and just being able to pound as fast as I can and get there timely. So I may have to do more pushing, but I suspect when I get back to the power line, I'm gonna be pushing anyway.
Well, yep, we'll just have to see how that turns out. I hope it works for you.
Yeah, I hope so too. I don't think the easier front, that small front, made all the difference, but when you're down to a minute from being cut off, any little thing could make the difference. I suspect my being overweight might have contributed more to my failure. And I can address that. I've got time to do that, and I've already been doing that. Excuse me. And plan to continue doing that with dietary changes. And now that I've got all these surgeries behind me, being able to get on the bike and spend some serious time working out. I have changed my training a bit now. My training is going to be on the bike, as Mike likes to make fun of me of in the past. I used to spend a lot of time training for Ironman races on my skateboard, and I spent as much time at the skate park or in the pool as I would in the swimming pool, just because I've got a son who skates and I love skateboarding. It's a blast. I'd much rather be on a skateboard than running or swimming. But I'm not doing that this year, Mike. So rest assured, my orthopedic surgeon told me not to do it anymore. So gonna cut back on the skateboarding.
Well, here you go, first timers. I think this is a good one to, listen to. If you're going to train for Leadville, skateboarding is not the way to get to the red carpeting. Get on your bike, not a skateboard.
Yes, I think that's good advice. That's good advice.
Oh my goodness. All right. So what else? Some other things.
Yeah, I mean that, I could talk about like we talked about before we got started. I could talk about Leadville, all day. It's a very significant event. I'm glad that these first timers have signed up for it and are gonna, do what they have to do to get to that finish line timely. You can do it, and I've gotten to the finish line. I haven't done it timely, but this is the year. So, trying to eat healthy, trying to make sure that your fuel is right, not only for your training sessions, for any kind of weight loss you may need to do, but for fueling up for the race ahead of time and what you're going to be eating during the day. Again, I can't talk enough about the nutrition aspect of Leadville, how important that is from my perspective.
And when I was talking with Chris Carmichael, one of the most fundamental things he stressed was power to weight and losing weight. And, he suggested that when you start your journey for Leadville, you just start eliminating calories a little at a time. If you have 2 beers after dinner, only have 1. If you have, whatever it is, you just start to cut back a little at a time. And before you know it, you'll start to see weight loss, and you'll do it correctly. Instead of just all of a sudden, I'm cutting out this, I'm changing everything, a little bit at a time. You start to lose the weight, your body composition starts to change, and you start to become, more of an athlete. You start when your power to weight ratio gets better, you get faster, you get stronger. So, you know, that was the easy fix. You know, you don't need to buy carbon bars. You know, it's better to lose the weight, get more lean. That's going to get you to the finish line faster than a carbon bar or a carbon seat post instead of a, you know, an aluminum one. So save some money in the grocery store. Take, you know, manage this, whatever this is. Ranch dressing, no. Pizza crust dipping in ranch dressing, probably not the Leadville recipe.
And I haven't had that in a while. No, and for sure, I mean, he's the expert, you know. I'm interested. I haven't seen his show yet, but obviously he's the expert on this area in terms of nutrition, in terms of training. But what I have tried to do since finding out and getting kind of this health scare at the beginning of the year is just, like I said, I'm cutting out those. I'm looking at a couple different things. I'm looking at if something's got cholesterol in it, I'm not going to eat it. You know, you can occasionally have eggs and those debates about the value of eggs, but I'm not eating cheeseburgers anymore. I'm not eating a Reuben sandwich today, even though it's St. Patrick's Day and I'd love to have one. I'm not eating beef, and I'm not even really eating that much lean meat protein, although I will excuse myself and let myself have some fish or some chicken breast occasionally. Getting rid of the pizza and the ranch dressing, like Mike mentioned, it was tough for me, but I did that. I'm not doing that either. I think my wife and I probably had more charcuterie boards during just the month of December than most people would have in a decade. So cutting back on the amount of cheese that I was eating was an incredible change. Watching my sodium, of course, because of my high blood pressure, decreasing the alcohol intake, all those things. I've tried to make those changes and kind of all together. So it's been some radical changes. So far, I've been able to do it. I'm 60 days into that right now, about 15 pounds down. I'd like to continue maybe another 30 pounds between now and race day to get myself where I want to be, where I think I can, you know, I can really go fast. The science is there, right? I mean, the work equals your mass times distance. If you've got less mass, it's less work. And you can't beat that math.
Right. So, you know, I mean, you threw out some pretty significant numbers there. What is your weight? What was your weight when you started the, you know, the dietary shift?
So I got up to my biggest. You know, you'd always tease me about being a Clydesdale, which is over 200 pounds. I would love to be 200 pounds right now. I'm considerably heavier than that. I got up to by New Year's I was at 255. So that's the heaviest I've ever been my entire life. I'm dropped down now. I'm closer to 240. When I raced in 21 and in 22, I was more like 225, 230. When I raced in 2013 and had my best finish, I was probably 190, 195. So, you know, it makes a big difference how heavy you are in terms of being able to do any racing. But when you put in the elevation changes and trying to get up those hills, you know, it's an incredible difference to be 10 pounds lighter, 20 pounds lighter, or what I'm shooting for, 30 pounds lighter, just to be able to get up the hills. I'm great on the downhills though. I always pass people on the downhills.
So what's your race weight goal?
That's a tough one. I've got an aspirational goal, you know, and I'll be happy if I get down below 230, but not as happy as I'd be if I was closer to like that 200 mark. That's a lot of weight to lose between now and August. So I know that that might be more aspirational than achievable. But I think, let's face it, my eating and my diet in the last 10 years or so, 5 years especially, has been horrific. So these changes are a significant change from where I was. I had really fallen off the path of being an athlete, of trying to take care of myself and let myself go horribly. So, you know, it's going to be a lot to come back from that. Really is going to be a lot to come back from that. I'm doing everything I can. like Mike said, the portion issue is still kind of tough. Because even if you're eating healthier foods, you can't eat the giant portions. You got to count calories to some extent. More concentration on calories would definitely take me in a better direction toward weight loss, especially as I start increasing the workouts and can start balancing how many calories you need to do the workout you're going to do versus how many calories you're taking in because you're bored or because you just wanted to eat that extra piece of bread.
Well, that's a good point. You have to make sure for your first timers, you have to make sure that when you're doing the workouts, you're fueling your body correctly so that you have the energy to do the workouts. You can't go into the workout depleted and do your intense workouts and not be able to get to the numbers you need to be because you don't have the fuel system or the fuel in your system. So you have to make sure that you're fueling properly while you're doing the workout and then manage more of the off workout times for the intakes. The caloric deficit after you've worked out is where you're going to, gradually see that weight loss. So
Yeah, I
enough
think
on
that's
weight, right?
without a doubt, you got that. And the other thing is recovery and sleeping and resting. It's easy for a lot of people who are training and who got busy lives. You got a job, you got family, you got kids. You got to have that rest time and that downtime, and work that in too. That recovery is what's going to help you get stronger and build your muscle. So just keep that in mind too. You can. It's okay to take a day off every once in a while.
Right. You've got to adapt, right? That's the periodization. You work out, you work out, you work out. Then you've got to, then you've got to back it down. You've got to let your body adapt. And that's where the gains are made.
Well, I'm hoping nothing but gains between now and August. That's all I can tell you.
Nothing
Had
but gains.
had enough setbacks here between just the things in my career over the last decade, going to things in my physical health that all kind of came to a fruition because of those bad lifestyle changes.
All right. Well, there you go. Leadville, another story, that Leadville can be credited for where you're making big changes in your life, doing I don't know if a 180 is the right term, but, making a significant change because of Leadville. So I think that's going to help you in, more way than one.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Not only help me get back physically in the shape I want to be in so I can get off the medications and so I can be healthy and have a long, healthy, full life. But, that mental edge of getting to that finish line again and knowing that I can do it and that I haven't lost everything and that life hasn't beaten it all out of me and I'm still that same tough, stubborn guy who, as a 30-year-old, was able to finish this race. I'd like to have that guy with me when we do this race here in August. That's for sure.
The mental toughness, the mental confidence is super important. And it was interesting. I was talking to Karsten, our exchange brother in Germany, and I asked him, I said, at what point did you realize you were going to finish the Leadville Trail 100? And he paused for a moment and he got serious and he said, on the starting line. And I was like, on the starting line, really? And he's like, yeah, on the starting line. He said, because I prepared and I was ready and I did my homework and I did what I needed to do. And I just thought to myself, that is the attitude that you have to have when you line up for Leadville. You've got it, it's got to be inside you. I've checked all the boxes. I've done all the things. I've got my nutrition right. I've trained, I've prepared, all of these things. I can do it. And I just thought that was that really struck me. I was very surprised at his answer because most people say at the top of Columbine, at the top of St. Kevin, when I crested Hospital Hill, when I saw the red carpet, that's when they knew they would finish. But to hear the answer on the starting line, I thought that was the perfect Leadville preparation story. He had done everything. He knew he did what he needed to do to finish the race. So there's a tip. There's some good advice. get to that point where you are saying, I know I can do this. Wow. That was awesome.
Yeah, that is great. The self-doubt's going to be there, but as much as you can get rid of the doubts by preparation, um, Carson knows how to do it. I think Carson still has the family record, doesn't he, for the finishing time?
I beat him.
Oh, you beat him. All right. Well, he still
I
has
beat
beaten me.
him. All right. Well, Leadville Racers, I hope you got some value out of this. There's a lot that has to happen to finish Leadville when you're starting from zero. So you can do it. Commit, don't quit. That's what Ken says. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Taking your time out of your day. It was a good chat. It's good to see you. Love you, brother.
Yeah, love you too, Mike. Thanks for having me on here. It's been quite a pleasure. Excited about getting ready for this race, and I'm excited to see everybody here that's listening in and watching it on your podcast at that starting line too, knowing that we're at the start line, we can finish this thing, and we're gonna finish it.
We're gonna finish it. Awesome. Well, I hope people recognize you and pat you on the back and say, hey man, you're gonna do it this year. All right.
That'd be great. I look
That'd be
forward to
great.
that.
All right, racers. Just a reminder, we've got the Get My Buckle YouTube channel. This is what we're on. CTS is aligned with us, and their code is Get My Buckle. You get your athlete registration fee waived. And Bird wheels, which are the rope spoke carbon hooped wheels, super comfortable, super light. Their discount code is Bird Buckle 2024, and you get 10% off wheels. So utilize those discounts as you're preparing for Leadville. Good luck, and we'll see you at the finish line.